Welcome to Leadership is Dead, the podcast that challenges traditional leadership thinking and explores what it really means to lead in a post-COVID world. Each week, we dive into fresh insights and strategies brought to you by leadership expert Dr. Neil McIntyre. Each week, our hosts Liam Williams and Ava Brown take you through thought-provoking discussions based on Dr. McIntyre's latest writings and ideas, which are designed to help you rethink what leadership can be. But before Liam and Ava dive in, let's hear directly from Dr. McIntyre himself as he shares a few words on today's topic. Get ready, because he's here to set the stage for what's coming up.
Have you ever realized how much in our world today is not as it seems to be? Now, I'm not talking about you misunderstanding something or you misinterpreting something. I'm talking about people or even organizations depicting things in a manner to deliberately mislead you, deliberately to make you think things are one way when in fact it's the opposite. You know, I remember growing up as a kid, my grandmother used to keep a lot of photo albums of our family and stuff, and she would bring them out on occasion, and she would show us grandkids pictures of when our parents were small children, or even pictures of other relatives who have long and gone from this earth. And for her, it was a chance to reminisce, but for us, it was a chance to learn. But one thing that was clear back in those days was that the images that we were seeing, the pictures that we were seeing, they were real. This was before the time of video editing, photographic editing. This was before artificial intelligence was developed to change and alter pictures or even videos. So you understood that what you saw was the real thing. Today, we have millions of people who actively take part in viewing content on various forms of social media, for example. And whether that is videographic content or photographic content, these people are watching this stuff and they're seeing their world as that's how it should be, as it is depicted in those social media content. The thing that they fail to realize, though, is that almost in every single event, the content that they're viewing on social media has been altered in some form or fashion. Regardless of whether it's video content or photographic content, something has changed it. Whether it's using like Google technology where you have the magic eraser to erase certain things in the photo, or whether you're doing other video editing programs that can delete backgrounds and replace backgrounds, or even if the material itself was designed simply through the use of artificial intelligence and not even a real picture or video. But yet these people look at it, and now because of that, they're constructing their reality by what they see. And they're basically developing their own self-image and self-understanding of themselves through what they see on social media, which unbeknownst to them is fake. So it leaves them with this whole idea that I have failed. I haven't risen to the same level as this person on social media, that I have somehow fallen short in life, and that I'm not quite measuring up, which of course leads to a lot of self-image issues, a lot of self-confidence issues, and a lot of depressive issues for that individual because they feel that their life is tremendously less than the life of the people they're viewing on social media. Now, from an organizational standpoint, why do you even care what's being shown on social media? Well, the reality is that fakeness isn't simply limited to social media. I mean, think about it. We all know somebody that, whether they're in our personal life or our work life, who just come across as being fake. And we really don't care to be around that person because of their fakeness. It's more or less an act that they're portraying. And it may even be somebody that they're so fake that in certain situations, they may have something to do with you and they may actually talk to you in some environments. But if you change the situation and you change the environment, they don't even act as if they know you. We have that everywhere. We've all experienced those type of people. In fact, some of us, unbeknownst to ourselves, may actually be that very person. Within organizations, sometimes that individual who is trying to portray that false reality is none other than the leader themselves. Now, I firmly believe that we all suffer from this thing of imposter syndrome at different times, where we feel that we're not sure if we can do certain things. We're not sure if we can achieve certain goals or that we can do the job duties that are expected and required of us, and we're afraid that other people will find out and realize that we're a fake. I understand that. That is something that we work through. That's a self-confidence issue, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody and everything they say and everything they do, they're portraying things to be one way when in fact they're the complete opposite of that. Leaders fall into that trap as well. And I think one of the reasons why leaders fall into that trap is because they have a lot of expectations on them, but they also understand that they have a lot of eyes focused on them as well, that are just sitting there waiting on them to fail, waiting on them to fall. But the reality of it is that in our world today, unlike any time throughout history, we need authentic, real leadership more now than ever before. So how do we get there? How do you become a real, authentic leader and become one that your organization and your team needs in order to face this world that we're in now and be successful? Well, I think there's 3 things that we each can do to help ensure that we are a real and authentic leader. The first thing is live your values. Find out what is important to you. What are those values? Now, I'm not saying that, okay, I like a steak, that's important to me, or I like the color blue, that's important to me. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about from a values and beliefs standpoint, those fundamental things that define your very character. What is important to you? Is honesty important to you? Is transparency important to you? Is integrity important to you? Maybe it's loyalty. Maybe it's dependability. It could be all of these things. It could even be selflessness, where you're putting other people before you and you're trying to put what is better for them above what is better for you. Whatever it may be, define what your values and principles are. And then live it. Whatever those principles are, oftentimes we basically hold those principles up as if it as a lens that we view others through and to judge them by how well they conform to our values and beliefs. But we never turn that lens inward to see if we're upholding ourselves to those same criteria. So whatever your principles are, live them. If honesty is a principle that you firmly believe in, that's central and core to your very value and your very core being, be honest. Not just in some things, but in everything. If godliness is your core value, display those qualities and those principles that underneath your understanding of godliness, display that so others can see. If there's a disconnect there, you've got a problem. because other people are going to see through your behaviors what your values truly are. Number two, and even somewhat aligned with that, is this. You have to be a good person first. Forget being a good leader. That's secondary. Be a good person first. Whatever that means, whatever that entails, be that individual who is defined as good. Here again, like I said, this is attached to the values that we just talked about a few moments ago. Live your values. Display them in your everyday life. And hopefully the values that you firmly believe in, by doing that, you're also going to become a better person. You're going to become that good individual that people really truly need in today's hateful world. Because here's the thing, and the reason I said put leadership aside, and you may actually be in a leader role right now, but that's not really what's important. Because you've got to put leadership aside for a moment to focus on you as an individual person. Because if you're not truly a good person at your very foundation, there's no way you're going to be a good leader, and there's no way at all you'll ever be a great leader. Be a good person first. Put that as your primary focus. The third step that we all can take to be a real and authentic leader is this. Since the COVID pandemic of 2020, a lot of us have suffered fractured relationships since then. I think it was caused by the mandatory sheltering in place and isolation mandates that came out during that time to prevent that virus from continuing to spread. Well, what's happened is that for a lot of people, we haven't been able to go back and reestablish the ties that we had prior to COVID. So a lot of us are missing out on that connection with other people. A lot of people are missing out on that sense of belonging to those around them. So if you're going to be an authentic leader, you have to be relatable. Now, what I mean by relatable is this. Not that people understand where you're coming from necessarily, and that's just part of it. But what I'm talking about really is that you make intentional, conscious efforts to get out amongst your team to have conversations with them. Not about the job, but just about life, about their families, about their interests, their hobbies, their passions, whatever it may be. Get to know them on an individual level. See, a lot of times we have plasticized our relationships in organizations because when people come to work, we take this mindset that everything here is strictly business, and I don't want to form attachments to people because if I form attachments to my team members, then they may not take me seriously. Or if it comes time for me to discipline them for something, it's going to make it that much more difficult to do. And what's happened? We've seen a lot of struggles in society. We've seen a lot of struggles in organizations because of that plasticity and viewing people as nothing more than cogs in a machine, as opposed to somebody who is a real life human being with fears, hurts, ambitions, desires, whatever. So be relatable. Let them know your story, where you come from, what you believe in, the very values we were talking about a few moments ago. Let them know what those values are, and that will also help them see those values in your behaviors every single day. But maintain connections. I once worked in an organization where our supervisor, what he preferred to do was sit in his office, and if he had something to say to us or as an individual or even as a group, he would send out an email. Now, granted, this individual, this supervisor, his office was right next door. It would have taken all of maybe 15 seconds for him to walk out of his office into my office or some of the other individuals' offices there to tell us face to face. But he preferred not to do that. He was missing out on opportunities to develop relationships and connections with us. He was missing out on the chance to be relatable. Don't do that. Be that relatable leader in your organization. Again, our organizations, our world is at a moment right now where people are begging for real, authentic leadership that they can connect to, that they can relate to, that they can trust, that they can have faith in. But too many times, leaders let them down because leaders don't live their values. They're not focused on being a good person first, and they're not relatable. Don't be that person.
Whoa. Okay. That was intense.
Oh, yeah.
And
Wow, I know you were really looking forward to that one.
I was. And it's like my head is still spinning, you know? It's like,
What was it about it that, like, really?
it's like he threw a bucket of ice water on my
Yes.
perception of
Oh, wow.
pretty much everything.
Mm.
And honestly, I think the thing that like really resonated the most
Yeah.
was this point he made about how so much of what we see, especially online,
Yeah.
is just so carefully constructed to mislead us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like we're living in this world of smoke and mirrors.
Well, and it makes you wonder, like, what's real and what's not right.
Totally. And it's like messing with our heads.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's funny you should say that
Yeah,
because,
it is.
you know, it reminds me of, like, those old photo albums my grandmother used to have.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all those, like, faded pictures, maybe a little blurry.
Yeah.
But you knew they were real. Like, maybe they were genuine. Yeah.
A real moment.
No filters, no posing, just real moments captured in time. And I think what Dr. McIntyre was getting at is that, like, social media has taken us so far away from that,
Yeah,
you know, that authentic experience.
absolutely. And he was saying how like people are starting to base their entire reality
Yeah.
on these like altered images and videos.
Yeah.
It can't be healthy.
No, it's not healthy. It's actually, like, leading to some pretty serious self-esteem and confidence issues.
Oh, totally.
Especially for, like, young people, you know? He was talking about how this whole culture of fakeness is,
Mhm.
it's so pervasive now that it's, like, affecting how we see ourselves
Yeah.
and how we see other people.
Yeah. He even brought up that magic erasure technology
Oh, gosh.
as an example. And it's kind of terrifying how easy it is to like manipulate content these days.
I know.
It's like you can literally make things disappear from photos.
Like, it never even happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just, like, one example, though.
Right.
But it really kind of illustrates a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
And I think what's even more jarring is it's not even just social media anymore.
It's not. No.
It's like you think about
Yeah.
how many people are putting on a facade, like, in different parts of their lives.
Oh, wait. Oh, like
Like pretending to be someone they're not to fit
Yeah,
in
yeah.
or to impress other people.
all the time.
It's
Yeah. And that kind of fakeness can be even more
jarring.
in
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
You get this sense that they're always performing,
Yeah.
which is just so off-putting.
Right.
And I think that's why his talk about authentic leadership
Oh, yeah.
really like hit home for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like more crucial than ever,
It is.
given all this fakeness that we're surrounded by.
I think he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how so many people struggle with what they call imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, that feeling that you're not good enough.
Like you're a fraud.
Yeah, like you're going to be found out as a fraud.
Yeah.
And that this constant pressure to, like,
Project this perfect image.
project this perfect image online can really make those feelings even worse.
But he made a really clear distinction between imposter syndrome and like deliberately portraying
Yeah.
this false reality.
Yeah.
Which is just like a whole other
Oh,
level of
so,
problem.
Yes. Especially for leaders.
Right.
Because leadership is all about trust.
Hmm.
It's all about authenticity.
Yeah.
And if you're not being genuine, how can you expect inspire and motivate people?
Yeah.
You know, he really drove that point home.
So what does authentic leadership actually look like in practice?
Well,
He kind of outlined these 3 key steps.
he did.
And the first one is
Living your values.
all about living your values.
Yeah.
You know, like identifying those core principles that define who you are,
Right.
and then making sure that your actions
Yeah.
align with that.
Absolutely. He showed some really good examples.
He did.
Like honesty, integrity, selflessness. And it's not just about saying you value these things.
No,
It's
yeah.
about actually demonstrating them in your life.
Exactly.
And I think this is something we can all ask ourselves,
It is.
right? Like, do we judge other people by values that maybe we don't even uphold ourselves?
Interesting.
You know, food for thought.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that ties in really nicely with his second point,
Yeah.
which is be a good person first.
Right.
Like good leadership flows from that,
Yeah.
not the other way around.
It's not about the title.
Exactly.
It's about who you are as a person.
It's about prioritizing those values and letting them guide your actions.
And that naturally
Yes.
contributes to being a good person.
Yeah.
You know, if you're genuinely trying to live by your principles,
Yeah.
it's going to show
Mhm.
in how you treat other people. It's not about being perfect.
No.
It's about striving to do the right thing, even when it's hard.
Yeah. And that's what he believes is like the fundamental quality of a good leader, someone who leads with integrity and compassion.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of brings us to his third step,
Okay.
which I think is maybe the most relevant for the world today.
Okay.
And that's being relatable, especially as we're all
Especially now.
navigating this like post-pandemic landscape where I think a lot of relationships have become more fractured.
Totally.
Yeah.
He really emphasized the importance of human connection,
Yeah.
which I think is something a lot of us are still missing
Mm-hmm.
after all those years of isolation.
I think so too. And I think for leaders,
Yeah.
you know, that means making an effort to connect with their team members on a more personal level,
Absolutely.
you know, sharing stories, asking about their interests, their families, like
Yeah.
really taking the time to see the individuals,
Yeah.
not just the employees.
He told a story that really stuck with me
Oh, yeah.
about this supervisor
Mhm.
who only ever communicated with his team through email,
Oh, wow.
even though his office was right next door.
Oh my gosh. It just goes to
Oh.
show like how many opportunities we miss for connection
Yeah.
when we let technology
Become a barrier.
be that barrier. Yeah. Like imagine how different that dynamic would be if he had just walked next door or just had a quick conversation.
Yeah.
You know, it's about recognizing that everyone on your team has a life outside of work.
Yeah. And he really argued that this kind of relatability is so essential for building trust
Yes.
and understanding, which are
very
the foundation of any successful team.
Absolutely.
It shows that you see your team members as human beings,
Mm-hmm.
not just cogs in a machine.
It all comes back to that,
Yeah.
you know.
And this whole idea of relatability really resonated with me because it ties back to what we were saying earlier about authenticity.
Exactly.
You know, it's about being comfortable enough in your own skin
Yeah.
to let other people see your true self.
Be vulnerable.
Yeah. Not being afraid to be vulnerable, to
Yeah.
share your struggles and your triumphs.
Because those shared experiences are what create those real bonds.
Totally. It's like showing your team that you're not this infallible superhero.
Right.
You're a real person
Yeah.
who faces challenges just like they do.
And when you create that kind of environment
Mhm.
where people feel safe to be themselves,
Yeah.
that's when the magic happens, you know?
Totally.
You unlock creativity, innovation, a level of collaboration that wouldn't be possible otherwise.
So to kind of distill his core message,
Yeah.
it's this.
Okay.
In a world that's like saturated with superficiality,
Yeah.
we need authentic leaders
Yes.
who are relatable,
Mhm.
value-driven, and genuinely good people.
That's it. Beautifully put.
Thank you.
It makes you think, though, like,
Yeah,
what would happen if we all took that to heart?
that's a good question.
You know, not just leaders, but everyone. What if we all just tried to be a little more authentic, a little more intentional about how we interact with the world?
I love that because it's not just about holding leaders to this higher standard.
Right.
It's recognizing that we all have the potential to be leaders in our own way.
Yes.
In our families, our communities, our workplaces.
Totally.
We can all strive to create a more genuine
Mm-hmm.
and connected world.
And that starts with, like, being more mindful of our own presence.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Totally.
Are we contributing to that culture of fakeness? Are
Yeah.
we presenting this idealized version of ourselves
Hmm.
that doesn't really reflect who we are?
It's so easy to get caught up in that,
It is.
especially with all the pressure
Yeah.
to project this perfect image on social media.
Yeah.
But he reminded us that like true connection comes from vulnerability
Yes.
and authenticity.
It does.
It comes from letting people see our flaws, our imperfections,
Yeah.
our unique stories.
Because that's where the real beauty lies,
Mm-hmm.
in our shared humanity.
Yeah.
When we let go of that need to be perfect
Yeah.
and allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are, that's when we can create those like real lasting connections.
And those connections are what make life
right.
rich and meaningful.
Yes.
They give us a sense of belonging, of purpose,
Of community.
of community. Yeah.
They remind us that we're not alone in this.
We're not alone.
in this crazy
It's
journey.
a powerful reminder that we all crave that connection,
We do.
whether we realize it or not.
Yeah,
And it's something that we can all cultivate
absolutely.
by being more present
More engaged.
and more authentic
Yeah.
in our interactions.
Starting today.
Starting today.
So after like taking in all of this wisdom,
Mhm.
what's your biggest takeaway?
What resonated with me the most?
Yeah.
I think it was just the importance of being intentional about cultivating authenticity
Mm-hmm.
in every aspect of our lives,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
not just our professional roles, but our personal relationships as well.
Yeah.
It's about like being true to ourselves
Yeah.
and showing up
Yeah.
as our authentic selves in every interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's a reminder that authenticity is a practice.
It is.
It's not a destination.
It's a journey.
Yeah. We're all works in progress,
Absolutely.
you know, constantly evolving
Yeah.
and striving to align our actions with our values.
And the more we embrace that journey, the more we contribute to creating a world
Yeah.
where genuineness and connection are valued above all else.
And that's a world worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is. So how can our listeners apply this to their own lives?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
How can they be more intentional about cultivating authenticity
Mm-hmm.
in their personal and professional journeys?
Yeah.
I think it starts with being more mindful
Oh.
of our thoughts,
Yeah.
our words, and our actions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are we being true to ourselves?
Are we living in alignment with our values?
Are we creating genuine connections?
Yeah, those are all great questions to think about.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
authenticity is about more than just being real. It's about living a life that is true to our deepest selves and inspiring others to do the same.
And that's a legacy worth leaving behind. It's like he gave us this roadmap
Yeah.
to navigate this crazy world
He did.
where it feels like everything's constantly shifting.
Mm-hmm. When sometimes a fresh perspective
Yeah.
is all we need
Totally.
to kind of like recalibrate
Yeah.
and find our way back to what really matters.
And that's what this deep dive is all about, right?
That's it.
Giving you something to chew on,
Yeah,
spark some new ideas, maybe even inspire you to take action.
that's right. It's about empowering you to be more informed,
Yeah.
more engaged, and ultimately more fulfilled in your own life.
So until next week,
Keep diving deep.
and keep it real, folks.
That's all for this week on Leadership is Dead. A big thank you to our hosts, Liam Williams and Ava Brown, for their insightful discussion and analysis. And of course, a special thanks to Dr. Neil McIntyre, whose writings and thought leadership have provided the foundation for this podcast. If you're looking for more information on leadership strategies for a post-COVID world, be sure to visit Dr. McIntyre's website at neilmcintyreconsulting.com. You can also connect with him on LinkedIn by searching for Dr. Neil McIntyre. Remember, leadership is evolving, and it's time to embrace new approaches. Subscribe to Leadership is Dead wherever you get your podcasts, and join us next week for another enlightening discussion. Until then, lead with purpose.